And welcome. I am Oiza Adaba. I'm coming to you from the Africa Related Studios in New York. And today I am talking to a seasoned journalist. He's known as the Godfather of the online journalism in Nigeria, none other than Mr. Dapo Olorunyomi. You are welcome to the studios, Mr. Dapo.
I'm so honored and grateful for this. Thank you so much, Oiza. Nice to be
It's
connected back after a
in,
decade or more.
much more than that, much more than that.
Yeah.
And we're connecting because you're the recent recipient of the Committee to Protect Journalists International Press Freedom Awards. Congratulations on that. What a
Thank
feat.
you very much. Oh, well, this all only comes and reminds everybody that we have so much more work to do. So, well, it's always helpful to claim awards like this, but
Hmm.
I think the important thing is that helps to highlight the state of press freedom and how precarious and nervous we should be.
Hmm. Indeed. And let's talk about that. Let's start with that, and then we'll go on to the award proper later on. What is the situation with press freedom in Nigeria at the moment?
Um, I think what data is showing is that we're really in a very bad shape. Um, First, the press attack tracker, which is a data platform that tracks abuses internally,
Hmm.
is saying that this year alone, 115 cases of abuse against journalists been recorded. From all indications, if you look at what the CPJ is reporting and what the RSF, which is based in Paris,
Hmm.
what they are also reporting, and put the three data together, really need to worry. We need to worry because the conditions that enable attacks on the press and on journalists
Hmm.
is spiking, really. And this of political, legal, and now legislative and public health through the COVID situation. Yes.
Hmm. And if we look at what the CPJ has been reporting on Nigeria in the last, it seems as if, every now and again we get an alert from the Committee to Protect Journalists with Nigeria in mind. This is in the last few weeks alone that we have
Yeah.
been seeing some of these reports coming out of Nigeria, from the death of Onifade Pelumi to the arrest of
Yeah.
Tom Uhia. So many cautions in the last few weeks coming out of Nigeria, coming to Nigeria. Are you aware if the government is taking heed at all to any of these international outcry that is getting more and more?
Well, that's the sad part of the story. The government is probably in denial, and it thinks that the best thing to do is to deflect on all these cases.
Mm.
In a sense, you'll understand that because of the October into November situation with the protests mostly in Lagos, in Abuja, and a number of other cities in the country around the policing culture, which is called the NSAS. This really brought to bear the failure of the government to be able to manage a very simple grievance among the populace. And again, journalists as usual, because we have to be at the scene of events, both
Mm.
cameramen and reporters they were the end of the very terrible practices of policing and of law enforcement in this case.
So, in other words, they're not listening. They're not they're not taking heed. They're not embarrassed at all. The government is not embarrassed by this constant media attention on its attack on journalists and human rights situation in Nigeria. Is that what you sense?
That's what's happening. There's apparently no indication in this direction. When the NSAS protests took place effectively, the
Mm,
first attitude of the government is to indeed deny that there's anything of that nature. Um, and this was followed by little revelations. So they kept shifting their position, day by day. Oh, okay, the soldiers were there. They were never there. Then suddenly they
mm,
were there, but they came only to, and they fired only blank bullets, and they fired up. The people died in stampede, and then they started challenging people. If people indeed died, where are the bodies and all this
mm,
type of statement? We did some interestingly investigative reporting on the situation, and
mm,
that came on a lot of attack from state parties. But I think the capping on it had been the CNN report
mm,
a couple of days, which now linked the case of bullets from Serbia, and the
mm.
fact that it had been ordered and paid for by the Nigerian army. That's really damning.
Yes.
And you don't have to, I don't have to repeat here what the Nigerian Minister of Information was saying about that. It's just simply unpleasant. Yeah.
It's a downright embarrassing situation, I think, overall for the Nigerian government, and especially when you look at it from an international perspective. Nigeria is one of the most important countries in the world, one of the greatest black nations in the world, and this is what we see coming out in 2020. And people like yourself and journalists like you have been at the forefront of covering this for years. And for you in particular, didn't this just this didn't just start. You have been the guests of the Nigerian government for more than one occasion. You've had your life threatened, I believe, and you've even had to go on exile. Tell us the cost of working as a journalist in Nigeria, a true authentic journalist, not the journalist that is that sadly has been corrupted by the system in Nigeria, but somebody that's it's coming from a place of truth. What is the cost to you?
Well, okay. So, and this is a very interesting question that you're asking, because indeed, there's no other time that we need good journalism in Nigeria than now. One, we have a public health crisis in the sense by way of the COVID virus.
Mm,
Um, we have a very, very serious economic condition. Um, and the government really needs to be able to hear the voices of people, to hear proposals,
mm,
to encourage debates, even if those debates are angry in any regard. And
mm,
this is what good journalism can help to foster. There's so much division in the country today, and you really want journalism to be able to help narrate
mm,
this reality in a way that government can then put a hand on them. But that's apparently not the case. As I speak to you today, there are about 2 dozen constraining laws that make it impossible to do good journalism in this country.
mm,
Um, this is just the statements that the state officials make about journalism and journalists is just so embarrassing. Not to talk of also state policies like, um, access to information and things like that. This is
yes, and
just
recently they're talking about clamping down on the internet use, and
absolutely.
freedom of
So this is
information, freedom of information bill. All of those issues have come to fore more recently, but what is it's still baffling. I don't know, maybe I am also coming from the perspective of a journalist, and it's
Yeah.
just baffling to see that all these things continue to pile. Recently we also heard that the National Broadcasting Commission also
Oh,
issued
yeah.
bans or fines, find some
Yeah.
stations over the coverage
Yeah.
of the protests. So, what
Yeah.
is really the state of truth telling in Nigeria today? If these of all the uphill battles that you face.
I mean, regulation in the broadcast sector is a major disgrace in this country. I tell you. You recall that our broadcast sector had always been kind of state or government centered.
Mm,
In 1993, when effectively we had private roles playing a stake in the broadcast sector. But what's happening is that although there's private participation in the broadcast sector today, government has continued to use regulation to make everything stay same as
mm,
if, in total control. And if you look
mm,
at it today, with the News Agency of Nigeria, the Radio Nigeria Network, which is extremely expansive, the Nigerian Television Authority, and a good number of the states. So you find that the broadcast is overwhelmingly in the hands of government, and
mm,
that's not acceptable in a democracy. And they just want it so that if you say something, just to draw attention to people in government that they consider to be unpleasant. I mean, they
mm,
just slam these usurious fines on you. And now, I think the good thing though that there's a fight back,
yes.
on account of what the government, through the NBC, that's the regulator in the broadcast sector,
Mm,
has done. Yeah, many of these stations are going to court, and we just need some kind of judicial pronouncement on this regulatory overreach. This is not how it should happen. You need to go to Ghana, or is that you
mm.
travel across very
Yeah,
and
we've
how these things
been.
are.
Hmm.
I
We've
mean,
seen how
you
it works there, you know.
yeah, yeah. So it's not like if we're seeking model or trying to ape, as they always try to quickly say, some kind of Western paradigms. No, just
Mm,
round the corner. You go to Senegal, go to Mali. So, I mean, we're really doing very poorly. And as a country that ought to provide leadership in every perspective,
mm,
certainly in the media sector, look at Ghana. Ghana's Fourth Republican Constitution makes clear that, there's press freedom and there can be no censorship,
mm,
by any
mm.
government. These are the kinds of initiatives that Nigeria should be leading on. But we're showing very extreme poor conduct in this and very
Very
bad example, I must say.
very, very poor indeed. And we see, unfortunately, where our image internationally is not, when we're not well represented, we don't look good at all. I just
No.
want to share, go to the event that brought us to be talking today, which is the Press Freedom Awards, which you were of which you were a recipient yesterday. We'll just show some of the introductions and the highlights to the evening, and then we'll get to talk about it shortly.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us for the 2020 International Press Freedom Awards, presented by the Committee to Protect Journalists. The powerful video that we just saw is the reason we're here. Whether covering the pandemic or protests, journalists everywhere are under attack. The very truth they seek to bring us is under attack. And shortly, we're going to meet some of the brave reporters that we just saw and learn how we can support a free press. And to guide us there, it's my pleasure to introduce Committee to Protect Journalists board member and anchor of the NBC Nightly News and Dateline NBC, Lester Holt.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Every year, the Committee to Protect Journalists, on whose board I am proud to serve, honors courageous journalists from around the world at this event. For nearly 40 years, the Committee to Protect Journalists has stood shoulder to shoulder with reporters around the globe who brave violence and intimidation just for bringing us the news. And I doubt that the committee has ever been more needed than right now. What a time we're living through. Rarely in our lifetimes has the need for accurate and timely information been greater. We are awash with misinformation and lies. The pandemic has emboldened autocrats everywhere to crack down on dissent and civil liberties. In democratic countries, leaders have undermined their own institutions and health experts in their attempt to downplay the crisis. Independent journalism is a bulwark against this erosion of freedom and slide into confusion. Journalists around the globe have taken up the challenge to keep citizens informed, sometimes at the price of their own freedom. Such sacrifice is a common theme at these CPJ Awards. This year is no exception. Tonight, we will hear from an international community of journalists, news reporters, familiar faces, and surprising guests who have all gathered to honor the work of 4 journalists from Russia, Nigeria, Iran, and Bangladesh, who have paid a heavy price for their quest after the truth. I'm honored to be here and welcome you to join us in this fight for press freedom.
Yes, and that is it. Very proud of you. Congratulations. My goodness. Tell us that moment
Thank
when you heard that you were one of these 4 very special nominees. We'll see the rest later.
Quite frankly, I must tell you, well, first it was a matter of shock. I've gone through this drill a whole lot in the 90s, so it was something that I wasn't really expecting in any sense. Quite frankly, I know that the situation with freedom is getting a little bit difficult here. We are building institutions here, both as a practice platform through the Premium Times, but we also have a side organization, which is a journalism innovation and development organization, which is called the PTCIJ. So, I mean, I spent more time at the PTCIJ end of things, trying to really build around innovations, around practice, around how we can innovate coverage, innovate on story distribution, financing of journalism, and things like that. So, well, I mean, I don't know how. I guess this is probably because we have the platform, the press attack .ng, which captures all these abuses. Frankly, I don't know. I mean, when you just said, no, you guys said no. Okay.
Yeah, but it's well earned, well deserved, and congratulations once again. And I'm sure you got to know your colleagues, and you know their works and follow their works, know as well. Tell us a little bit about those interactions with other journalists that facing the same issues as you are.
Yeah, so that is it's so funny that from Russia, from Iran, from Bangladesh, you just find out that it's the same situation you're dealing with, just different complexions. But again, then just shows how much more work the world in which we currently live in is. We have a terrible growth of populism at the political level, and just none of these 4 countries that we don't have this case of political populism. And then you see that also what has trailed that populism indeed has been some governance style that seems to separate people on account of religion or account of ethnicity, but just to keep governance, in the kind of murky, shaky state in which it is. I find also interesting that in these 4 countries where the honorees come from, there's a very active government role in trying itself to to play in the pool of disinformation, and it is also depressing on one level, but also quite telling moment. But again, just shows that the fights to build democracy, to sustain democracy, to help extend the liberties of citizens, it's an ongoing task, and
Indeed.
we've not done that much. So
Mm.
it's just so much work to do.
Where does fear come in? Any element of fear in doing this job, because it must not be pleasant. I've spoken with a lot of journalists. Their families are not safe, and they more and more we have talks of the mental state of the journalist, which has never even been a conversation in our country, in Nigeria. The mental state of the journalist. You're subjected to so much stories out there, people's experiences, and it keeps coming at you. Where do you get respite, and where does fear or come to play?
Well, I mean, we're all human beings. I guess the most important part of this is the fact that okay, we just have responsibility,
Mm,
and as the saying goes, where question of responsibility comes in, you either have to bear it or betray, that responsibility. I'm sure that everybody has moments of fear and concern, but personal fear too is not as important as the fear for your community, for your society. 60 years after independence,
mm,
who goes out showing the kind of report card that Nigeria is carrying about? It's a total disgrace.
hmm,
With the enormous wealth in this country, with just the incredible capacity for knowledge and very creative people. I mean, who goes about saying that this is the best that Nigeria can show? So the fear, I think, at this point ought to really be the fear of how a country like this will be. What kind of Nigeria will our children, our
mm,
grandchildren, and all that live in? I mean, I don't think we can case in Nigeria. We're fighting an 11-year insurgency in the northeast. Banditry is ravaging the whole upper corner of the country,
mm.
down to the northwest now. In the middle reef of the country, there's also
All
kidnapping and
sorts.
all sorts of. So just the security of life, just off the table.
Hmm,
This is not the way. This is not the kind of community that we hope, want to yield to our children. So that's the greatest fear, I think, in Nigeria, rather than personal. I mean, probably it can hurt you, and there are just enough people who want to do that, but no. So our ability to be able to build a society that respects law and order, and not law and order in the interpretation of people who are in law enforcement. I mean,
mm,
law and
mm,
order even means that state officials must obey the law. They must understand what rule of law means. Um, and this is a very, very serious issues on the
mm,
table.
mm,
Uh, how we navigate that and build a society that's so welcoming, that prepares our children to match their peers from other lands as we move effectively into this 21st century. That's the greatest challenge here.
mm.
So, yeah,
Indeed.
yeah. I'm
It's
sorry to sound too.
yeah, it's actually very depressing, because we were talking about this earlier before we got into the studio. We'll take a quick break now, and when we come back, we are going to listen to Dapo Olorunyomi's acceptance speech, which I thought was very, very powerful.
In 2 months from now, it will be exactly 2 years since the Ghanaian investigative journalist Ahmed Swale was brutally murdered
in the presence of his young child. It will be 1 year since Dada had, and as I speak to you today, 20. Peaceful and exceptionally modest progress Africa has made in the past decade is in great threat. Yet we cannot lose sight of the fact that
Gbe na kó kàn sọ fún pé
I'm going to come back to the speech, for that to continue. But I would like us to speak a little bit about what we have heard so far from this very, very powerful speech that your acceptance speech that you gave yesterday after receiving the International Press Freedom Award 2020 given by the Committee to Protect Journalists. Sorry. And we thank the CPJ. Thank you, CPJ, for the videos and all the visuals that you provided for us. And we really, truly value the work that you do around the world. You touched on so many issues on that speech. It came all round, and again, it shows a nation that is faced with a lot of issues. What should be the government's priority right now with all of these issues that you have outlined? What should the government be focused on right now to rectify or bring some form of resolution, so to say, to the current events?
Well, I think first, good governance is so critical for Africa today. And we have to understand that for us to be able to own this century, if we have not lost previous ones, is indeed to be able to use the power of the mind and imagination. And the media can be a very powerful instrument in this whole process, helping to galvanize the thoughts of people, set up the right kinds of debates that will create options for the road to be taken and road not to be taken, and so on. And if all this will be done, really, important reforms will have to be put in place, conditions that will make it possible for the media itself to work in a truly independent and professional way. I would say that in Nigeria, clearly, the first attention at this point is to create the conditions that will enable the economic sustainability and survival of journalism as a practice and as an instrument of democracy. Don't forget, Section 22 of our Constitution makes it very clear that the one institution that will provide oversight over governance will be the media. And that's why generally it's easy to talk of an accountability journalism in Nigeria, because there's a legal order. That's the expectation, of the framers of the Constitution, that the role that the media should play. I mean, to its freedom is to enable it, bring consequence to this kind of aspiration. Then, we have to move to the legislature and find a way to evacuate some of those truly very antiquated laws that are in the. Of course, because of situations in the country today, you find that state party elements are also very interested and eager to add more constraints on how the media can do its work. The Anti-Terrorism Act, that's another law that's just been thrown there because of. And you can see that deliberately it's been targeted to an institution like the media. There's so much anxiety, so much interest to constrain. Nobody has really, I'm sorry to say, has made this really much more difficult than the Nigeria's own Minister for Information himself. He just goes on thinking that, the media is a problem in the country. Of course, there's bad
Meanwhile, the
journalism.
media can be a tool.
Absolutely. I mean, there's of course, bad eggs in every profession. You want to look at the whole Nigerian political class and speak of good and bad elements. I mean, they will make the global list of, bad cases. So there will be good soldiers, there will be bad soldiers, good policemen, but so there will be good journalists. Indeed, so that's the thing. But what role can good media, a very professional media, play in development? Now the United Nations itself is already talking of how media freedom will be a central quality in the expression and deliberation of what we dare call democratic quotient. You cannot talk of development in a way without trying to measure what quantum of media freedom is available in that country. So the thing is to look at it and see how all this can help play a major role in helping. And that doesn't mean that they are agreeing with what government says. Because government can be wrong, and that's very important to accept.
What about the role of the youth? What do you have to say to young people? I spoke with a lot of people that were so enthusiastic about, the prospects of Nigeria, and only to be heavily deflated by what had transpired. So, what word do you have for young people in Nigeria?
I think because of the poor choices that political leadership has made in this country, young people have every right to believe that the future is very dim. Um, and if we cannot plan a future for our children, most people in government today, once they can take care of their own children, they really think that they've solved the youth problem. But Nigeria has perhaps the widest youth belt, the youngest youthful population. This could be a great, great, great asset. But you bet it can also be a great danger for that society. Energy, vigor, risk taking, these are all in the province of youth. And what sensible governments and sensible countries do is to corral all that energy and put it to the purpose of building a nation, uh, correcting ills and so on. But I think young people with justification have reasons to really look back and say, where are the jobs? Where are the schools? Nigerian undergraduates have been home for months and months now. Uh, how can how can we make progress in that way? And you hear about the kinds of billions and millions that have been defined in terms of corruption, agencies of government, and so on and so forth. So, and then you hear of all the wasteful, totally meaningless investments that government is making in many regards.
Not to
So,
talk of the debt, our debt as a nation.
terrible debt overhang. Yeah, I mean, without that, if you want to locate the root causes of the kinds of massive protests of October, the end SARS, you really have to provide a sociology of this kinds of neglect of the youth belt and see what it means. Yeah.
Man, I've heard it said that Nigeria needs a complete overhaul, complete, even down to a psychiatric evaluation, because we have been traumatized as a people. When you hear some of these stories coming out, these are people's lives, and it's coming out as something from a horror movie, and Nigerians have actually lived through this, for a very long time. So I really hope that, with some of these outcry, things would change. Let me ask you just before we go. I'll still come back and play the last clip on your speech, but just before that. Where do you see the role of the international community here? I know that the outcry is out there. Yes, CNN did a report, and it's gradually being put. What else should be done? Would you want to see from the international community to curtail some of these excesses that we see in the country?
Well, the problem with international um, politics today is that it's also come at a time when even the big powers, you find a whole lot of poor conduct in international politics. Countries that were providing leadership in the past on questions of democracy and human rights and some sense of uh, tolerance have become, hotbeds of total intolerance of populism, like in the United States and like in the UK. of course, Russia and all that, it's always a norm to expect that this is the kind of posturing. So I think there's some sense of relief with the new election in the United States. Um, because look, I mean, the United States has an awesome amount of power and leverage in the international system. So it's important that you are able to have institutions and governments in places like that that themselves believe in democracy and human rights. But having just go accepting for all that, I think it's important also for the international system to start expecting that there will be best practices. Look, countries like Nigeria, we signed to protocols, obligations in the international system. And I'll take just one because I know that your time is almost creeping. Policing culture. Nigeria is party to the Treaty on the Convention Against Torture. We signed that, believing that that's what we want to do back home. Not only that, in 2017, we went ahead, our own parliament passed what is called the Anti-Terror, Anti-Torture Act. And then we did what is then followed a year after by an administration of the Criminal Justice Act. These two laws make it impossible to even have an institution like SARS in the first place. So how can we have laws that speak to the possibility of building decent society, and then you are also building criminal gangs at the side? So the international community must be able to say, oh no, this is not the standard by which you yourself have asked us to define and accept. Stay at home. All this junketing of public officials, they always love to go have good vacation and recreation in Europe and America. They asked to pay for this. Sit right there. Sit back home where you are creating this mess and see what it means.
Yeah, no doubt that some of these measures will go a long way. I know for sure, visa and visa revoking and all of that, or at least minimizing the number of times they're allowed to visit or even buy property, and so many things that the banking system as well, the financial sector, all of these are contained. But we can go on and on, Dapo. But let me go back to the last 4 minutes of your speech last night, because I think it's very important that our viewers complete it. So let's take a listen.
Well, now, okay. Thank you very much. It's an honor. I think the voice got clipped somehow, but I like just to say how grateful I am. And you should visit Nigeria often.
Indeed, indeed. I was talking to myself earlier, but I was saying thank you so much for your time. Indeed, it's been a pleasure, and congratulations again for
Thank
receiving
you
this
very much.
noble award. And we also thank our friends at CPJ for giving us these videos to share with the rest of the world, and also for continuing to stay on our governments around the world to ensure that journalists around the world are free. And that's a great resource. It's cpj.org. Let's see if we can find them somewhere. cpj.org. Go onto their websites as journalists. It's very helpful. There are a lot of resources there that can help you. And again, we have been talking with Dapo Olorunyomi, journalist, veteran journalist, the godfather of online journalism in Nigeria, and also the recent recipient of the CPJ International Press Freedom Award. Thank you so much, Dapo, for being with us
Thank you
today.
so much. I really feel honored. Thank you.
Wonderful. So until next time, viewers, when we bring you another fantastic guest, keep staying with us and keep enjoying the shows from this channel, and most importantly, keep getting educated.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.